Well, so I mean, we were actually staying in the same house in Marsh Harbor in the Bahamas during this whole trip, and I took a lot of time to kind of digest the whole experience and send him an email specifically because I didn't want there to be any kind of like heated exchange between us. I mean, he's not the kind of character that would take criticism very well, or I wanted to have him have something that he could refer back to, and that he couldn't just start an argument that he would have to read it. And he didn't respond in writing. We spoke about it, but we didn't speak about it at length. But he did take measures. He extended he canceled that year's dives and took that carbon fiber tube and cut it up, found the defects, and made a new one at the cost, I believe, of well over $1 million.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. So you've heard this expert saying that he heard loud cracking noises and he confronted Stockton Rush about it. He also makes a very interesting and compelling argument that Stockton Rush had a 20-year background in the aviation industry, which we all know uses composite materials. And then he applied that science and that kind of level of engineering to deep sea underwater craft, and obviously not in a way that is really sound science. Do you agree with that? So this is a true crime channel, and what we want to start doing is try and understand this guy's psychology. What are his motivations? Who is the man behind the mask? Basically just who is this guy? And, are his efforts or his endeavors above board? And a blog from the Oceangate Expedition's website has been scrubbed. So, are they completely transparent, or are they hiding something? Have they not been transparent all along? If the psychology is one question, the other question we're asking is a very simple but not easy question. Why? Why did this happen? And if we look at an article from the New York Times dealing with the safety warnings and these loud cracking noises, there's a paragraph that reads, quote, Mr. Rush had heavily promoted his plans for the Titan before its first deep-sea dive in 2019. Well, as soon as you do that, it's very ill-conceived. It hasn't passed these tests, and now you are, running before you can walk, essentially. There's another paragraph that reads, in an April 2019 email to Mr. Rush, Mr. Stanley said that the loud cracking sounds that they heard during their dive sounded like a flaw or defect in one area being acted on by the tremendous pressures and being crushed/damaged. He wrote that the loud cracking noise signaled that there was an area of the hull that is breaking down. Just think about that. All of this is going down 4 years before now. He heard it firsthand. He was confronted about it firsthand, even in emails. Other people confronted him. Why did he ignore it? Why did he insist in that email that's now been scrubbed that certification wasn't necessary? I suspected that they might scrub that email, so I did take a screen grab of it. I've only got the top of that blog post screen grab, but here it is. Before we get to the rest of this analysis, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. If you're enjoying this episode, please like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. One of his prospective clients, Jay Bloom, described Stockton Rush as someone who was drinking his own Kool-Aid. And I've got an idea that Oceangate's PR provides a clue not only to the Titan's undoing, but also to Stockton's undoing. It's ironic to me that an operation that is all about depth and going deep below the surface seems to be so superficial. Predictably, as I say, Oceangate have already scrubbed a compromising post from their website. they've scrubbed a compromising post from their website defending their decision to not get certified. It's also interesting, during the course of high drama that played out over almost a week, Oceangate only put out 2 very vanilla posts across their social media. The first was in particular noticeably thin on facts and information. Now, Oceangate is a commercial enterprise, and Titan wasn't its only operation, it wasn't its only submersible. So one can imagine there will be an attempt to protect their interests, and people will try to make sure the business stays afloat. And, if you want to be cynical, if you want to blame the CEO, well, he did go down with the ship. He has paid the ultimate price. I think it's hard to say at this point whether the publicity that this incident has attracted will all be negative. Probably tens of millions of people have heard about Oceangate for the first time. And if even a fraction of those sign up with a company, they could well see their fortunes boosted. Nevertheless, one would like to see some accountability, responsibility, and transparency in regards to the Titan disaster. For starters, I don't think one should continue to sell or advertise tickets to the world's only carbon fiber submersible, given what's happened. You'd think that the whole carbon fiber aspect has now been settled. Doesn't work. It also begs the question, how many others are there? Is there a second one? Is there a backup submarine? In terms of the corporate psychology, now begins the larger process of finding out what the spirit and culture of this company was and the man behind it, and in particular, which pressures they faced and how they faced up to them. We did a similar deep dive through the timeline of the Rust incident, and we saw that it's often not just a single individual caught up in a particular mindset, but several pursuing the same agenda. Obviously, in this case, as in the case of Rust, no one intended for there to be a loss of life, but the question remains whether a reasonable person could have or should have foreseen problems. There are several ways to determine this via the financial narrative, via the PR narrative, and via the safety protocols narrative. One thing I noticed early on in this case was the CEO's attention to surfaces, things like branding and logos, and choosing a younger-looking crew and pilots, and making maverick-type statements, and using head-turning gadgets like the game controller. I also found it interesting how well he photographed and promoted and branded his operation. He had it all up and running when it wasn't really up and running. It wasn't certified. It wasn't even safe for all intents and purposes. All of the marketing he did in running up to 2019 was shortly on the back of those loud cracking sounds. And then I think they had to scrub a lot of those missions in 2019. If you think about all the articles and interviews, I've come across so many, from CNN to the Smithsonian, from GeekWire to CBS, where the CEO seems to be making finish line and Oscar acceptance speeches before crossing the finish line or being awarded the Oscar. As early as 2021, he also produced a book and printed stickers to promote his brainchild. PR is obviously important to bring in ticket sales, but PR, as occurred in the Everest disaster, when you're dealing with extreme situations, has a nasty habit of putting a lot of additional pressure on you. Financial pressure, time pressure, ego pressure, keeping up appearances pressure. All of that is fine if lives aren't at risk, and what you're doing doesn't necessarily have a life and death safety situation that needs to be resolved. When lives are at risk and there's a time aspect to it, a time window, but your focus is on appearances and cameras and interviews, then you're likely to lose focus and slip up. Interestingly, even in their own promotional material, they made comparisons between their expeditions and climbing Everest. In terms of financial pressure, Stockton seemed to be running out of money this year. he seemed to have underestimated costs, and one symptom of this was in the hiring of the not terribly awesome Polar Prince. Just have a look at other vessels that the Oceangate has chartered in the past, where he seems to have erred on the side of being oversized and awesome. Some of them have even been outfitted with snazzy helicopter pads. This is why one has the impression the CEO was more concerned with appearances than what was going on under the surface, including and especially with his submersible. If you think about it, the skin of his progeny, the Titan's hull, was not only too thin, but beneath that snowy exterior, too weak as well. Even Titan's window, which he boasted was one of the largest for a craft of this kind, was only certified to 1,300 meters. We are starting to get an idea that he was in deeper financial difficulty and far more desperate than we actually thought in the beginning, because we see him going to clients in Florida, promising them a seat and then never delivering. We see him going to Vegas, trying to hawk 2 seats to a father and son duo, trying to explain why sperm whales don't occur at a certain depth, and then eventually offering these clients that he's met in person $100,000 discount each. That's giving away basically $200,000, and then offering seats for free to one YouTuber, then to another one, and then seeing one mission after another scrubbed because of whatever reason, weather, mechanical issues. I do tend to agree with what Jay Bloom said, is that I don't think Stockton understood the risk himself, or he didn't want to understand the risk. I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.